Hi, this is Stuart Talley. I'm here today to talk about a hip case that we're currently involved in, involving a hip manufactured by Stryker. It's a hip called the LFIT V40 head. And what this is it's a part of the hip that's the actual head, or also known as the ball of the hip. There have been lots of reports of problems with this head, and in particular the reports are indicating that the head is causing cobalt and chromium ions to be released into the hip joint. The reason for this is that the trunnion, or the section of the hip that connects to the ball, is not connecting properly. They call it this the taper lock, and the taper lock was not designed properly, and as a result, the two pieces of metal rub against each other, which can cause this cascading problem with corrosion. And you can end up with corrosion of the stem and the neck, as well as the inside of the ball. And the end result of that is the release of cobalt and chromium into the hip joint. There have been lots of issues with cobalt and chromium involving other types of hips, in particular metal on metal hips. So these are hips where you have a metal ball on a metal cup. The problems with the Stryker LFIT are not related to it being a metal on metal hip. The LFIT is actually a metal on plastic hip, but you have the same type of issue. When you have cobalt and chromium that's released into your hip joint, it can cause a huge number of problems. The biggest one is soft tissue damage. We have many clients who have had what's called metallosis, and this is where you have cobalt and chromium that actually causes inflammation, and it kills the tissue. It destroys the tissue in the hip joint. So we're talking about destroyed muscles, tendons, nerves. It is a big problem, and it is especially a problem when it goes on for too long, because if it happens for too long, when they try to replace the hip through what's called a revision surgery, the new hip doesn't work properly because the tendons and muscles are not there to hold everything together like they should. So if you have an LFIT V40 hip, or you have any problems with cobalt and chromium being released into your hip joint, the first thing you should do is talk to your surgeon, explain to him that you're concerned about it, and the tests that he will likely perform are blood tests to see how much cobalt and chromium is in your blood. He also may do a special kind of MRI called a Mars MRI to see if there's soft tissue damage occurring. If you do have problems and it looks like you're going to need revision surgery, you should give us a call, because it's very important that you take steps that are needed to protect your interests. If the hip is defective, you have a claim, and there's a certain period of time in which you can file that claim. So it's very important to get a lawyer on board right away to make sure that that claim is preserved, and also to make sure that any hardware or evidence that comes from your hip during a revision surgery is preserved. One of the most important pieces of evidence in one of these cases is the explanted hip, the hip that comes out, because you can look at it and see if there's corrosion. So if you have one of these hips, feel free to give us a call. You can reach us at the phone number on the screen. Also, you can fill out one of our online forms, and a lawyer will call you right back.